Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today and listening to me. Today, I want to talk about something that affects every one of us in some way, whether we talk about it or not. Something that many people experience quietly, behind the doors, or even behind a smile. Today, I want to talk about mental illness and why it is important, real, and an urgent concern. I want to talk about real people, real life, and real pain. The kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises, but it still hurts. The kind that isn't always visible, but it can break someone from inside. One of the biggest misunderstandings about mental illness is that we think it only affects a small group of people. But the truth is, more people struggle than we realize. Anxiety, depression, trauma, like bipolar disorder, these aren't rare conditions. They are part of everyday life for millions around the world. When we talk about mental illness, we are not talking. We don't walk around with the labels like, hey, I'm depressed, or I'm struggling with panic attacks. We go to work, take care of our families, sit in the classroom, and many of them carry silent battles inside of us. In our society, we think that struggling with mental illness makes someone weak. But if you think about it, it takes tremendous strength to live life with battling the mind. If someone broke a bone, we wouldn't say, just get over it. If someone had the flu, we wouldn't say, try thinking positive. But when it comes to depression or anxiety, people often hear, you're overthinking. Mental illness affects the way people think, feel, act, and even how they see the world. It can interrupt work, school, relationship, motivation, and the simple desire to live. It can look like someone laying awake at night, worried about things that others don't understand. Sometimes it looks like someone forcing themselves to get out of bed even though their whole body feels heavy. It can look like someone smiling in public and crying when they're alone. It also can look like someone feeling empty when surrounded by people. And if mental illness left untreated, it can become life-threatening. This is why mental illness must be taken seriously. I think one of the biggest reasons people suffer in silence is a stigma. People are afraid of being judged, misunderstood, or labeled crazy. Stigma makes people hide. Stigma makes people delay treatment. It makes people feel ashamed of something that is not their fault. Imagine someone is drowning and instead of asking for help, they're trying to pretend that they can breathe. That is what stigma does actually. But the truth is, talking openly about mental illness or mental health can save lives. The more we talk about it, the more we are normalize it, and more people feel safe getting help. Mental illness doesn't only impact the person who has it, it affects the entire families. Parents worried about children, children worry about parents, spouses try to support each other without knowing how. Sometimes families feel like helpless because they don't know what to do or what to say. Mental illness can create misunderstanding, conflicts, distance in families. But it can also bring families closer if we respond with empathy, patience, and love instead of judgment. A simple, "I'm here for you," can change someone's entire world. Still, in many cultures, talking about mental health is still a taboo. People say things like, just be strong. Don't talk about don't talk about family problems. What people will think. This silence doesn't protect anyone. It only makes people suffer longer. Mental illness is not a failure of faith, parenting, or character. It is a health condition, and there is no shame in getting help. And when we break cultural silence, we open the door for healing. Today's world adds more pressure than ever. Financial stress is growing, loneliness is becoming more common. Social media creates unrealistic expectations. Trauma, violence, and instability are rising. Young people feel more pressure to succeed constantly. All of this affects mental health. We live in a society that encourages people to stay constantly busy, but rarely encourages rest, emotional expression, or reflection. We are taught how to pass exam, get jobs, and earn money, but not how to handle stress or heartbreak. Mental wellness must become part of our education, workplace, and daily conversation. Sometimes, even when people want help, they're afraid of being judged. Cultural misunderstanding due to high cost of therapy or lack of insurance, they are not getting the help properly. Mental health resources must become more accessible, affordable, and culturally sensitive. Sometimes there are some signs of mental distress that we should never ignore, like lack of motivation, dramatic mood swings, sleeping too much or too little, sometimes excessive worry or fear, talking about death or self harm, difficulty concentrating, feeling overwhelmed, loss of interest in activities. So no one should struggle alone. When we see or notice any of these signs, we must speak up. So we can start asking people how they feel and listen, not to judge, not to fix, but to understand. We must stop using words like crazy, weak, or dramatic. Instead, use compassion. Mental illness is not a joke. We can encourage them to get professional help, therapy, counseling, medication, and support groups saves life. Always remember, getting help is a sign of strength, and we have to support each other. Sometimes people don't need advice, they need presence. A simple phone call, text message, or a visit can make a huge difference. So we have to take care of our own mental health, set boundaries, rest, say no when needed, ask for support, educate ourselves, learn about anxiety, depression, trauma, and other conditions. And remember, the more we know, the better we can help. Mental illness can make people feel like things will never get better, but recovery is possible. People heal, people survive, people rebuild their lives. sometimes slowly, sometimes painfully. But healing happens. Hope is not pretending everything is okay. Hope is believing that things can get better even when today is hard. We can share our stories to each other. Every time someone shares their struggles, someone else feels less alone. Someone else finds courage to seek help. Someone else realizes they're not alone. Remember, your story matters, your voice matters, your experience can help someone else heal. We have to end the silence. Mental illness becomes less scary when we bring it into the light. When we create spaces where people can talk about anything without fear, we also create spaces for healing. Remember, you don't have to be a doctor to save a life. Sometimes all you need to do is to listen. Sometimes all you need to do is care. There are many parents who wake up every morning, get their kids ready for school, goes to work, come home, cook dinner, help with homework. On the outside, they look responsible and strong, but inside, they feel exhausted, numb, and overwhelmed. They cry quietly at night because they feel like they are failing, even though they are doing everything they can. They don't talk about it because they believe they have to be strong for their family. They think asking for help means weakness. Over time, the sadness grows heavier. This is how depression often hides behind responsibilities and silence. Not only adults, there are many teenagers who scroll through social media and feel like everyone else is happier, more successful, and more confident. They compare their life with everyone else. They start believing they are not enough. They stop talking. They spend more time alone. Their grades drop. Adulting is just a phrase, but for the teen, it feels like drowning in loneliness. There are many elderly persons also facing loneliness. An older adult who rarely gets visitors. Their friends have passed away or moved. Their children are too busy. Days feel long and quiet. Loneliness slowly turns into depression. But they don't talk about it because they don't want to be a burden. Mental illness does not end with age. It often deepens with isolation. There's nurse, therapist, aide, caregiver who spends all day taking care of others. They see pain, loss, and suffering daily. They tell themselves they should be able to handle it. After all, it's their job. But emotional exhaustion builds up. Burnout turns into anxiety or depression. Caregivers need care too. There are many people who struggle silently for years after year before finally reaching out for help. They were scared, ashamed, and unsure, but when they did, they realized they aren't alone. That one little conversation with a therapist, a friend, or a doctor changed their life, not instantly, but slowly. That reminds us that help works. When we say help works, we don't mean that pain disappears overnight. We don't mean life suddenly becomes easily. What we mean is getting help changes the direction of someone's life. It gives people tools, understanding, and support that they didn't have before. Help works because it breaks isolation. Mental illness thrives in isolation. When someone keeps everything inside, fear, sadness, trauma, the mind conceives them. No one will understand me. I am alone in this. Nothing will change. The moment someone talks to one safe, believable person, I believe something shifts. Maybe it could be a therapist or a doctor or someone like a friend that you really trust. You have to remember that the first conversation does not fix everything, but it breaks the silence, and that alone reduces the weight people carry. Help works because people finally feel understood. Many people say the most powerful moment in therapy or counseling is not advice, it's hearing. Finally, what you're feeling makes sense. For the first time, someone listens without judging, without minimizing, without rushing. That validation helps people stop blaming themselves and start healing. Help works because it teaches skills, not just talk. Professional help isn't talking about feeling. People learn how to manage anxiety when it hits, how to challenge negative thoughts, how to set boundaries, how to cope with trauma, how to rebuild self-worth, how to calm their nervous system. There are many life skills many people were never taught. And over time, those skills reduce symptoms and increase confidence. For some people, therapy alone isn't enough, and it's okay. Medication doesn't change who someone is. It doesn't make people weak. It helps correct chemical imbalances in the brain. For many people, medication reduces panic attacks, help with depression, improve sleep. Sometimes medication makes therapy more effective. And it's not a failure, it's a treatment. Again, healing is not a straight line. Some days are better, some days are hard. But over the time, people often notice they recover faster from bad days. They understand their emotions better. They feel more hopeful. Stop feeling broken. Mental illness is a major concern, and if it left untreated, it can lead to substance abuse, physical health problem, or suicide. Access to medical health care is still limited for many communities. But the good news is mental health is treatable. Therapy, medication, lifestyle changes, social support, and early intervention can significantly improve quality of life. We have to talk openly about mental health, educate people to reduce stigma, encourage early help seeking, support one another with empathy and understanding. Mental illness is also becoming a concern because of how early it begins. Children and adolescents are experiencing stress, academic pressure, and emotional challenges at younger age than ever before. Many grew up without learning how to process emotion in a healthy way. When emotional education is missing, mental illness can develop quietly and worsen over time. Prevention must begin early, not after a crisis, but before one occurs. Another important concern is the inequality in mental health care. Not everyone has access to therapy, medication, or mental health education. Cultural beliefs, language barriers, financial limitation, and fear of judgment prevent many people from seeking help. Mental illness does not affect everyone equally, and neither does access to care. Addressing mental health means addressing fairness, inclusion, and understanding across all communities. What makes mental illness especially concerning is its connection to our physical health. Mental health and physical health are not separate. Chronic stress can weaken the immune system, worsen heart disease, increase pain, and slow recovery from illness. When mental health is ignored, our overall health suffers. Treating the body without treating the mind leaves healing incomplete. However, despite these concerns, there is also hope. One powerful change happening today is the growing conversation around mental health. Many people are speaking openly, sharing experience, and challenging harmful stereotypes. Mental illness is slowly being recognized not as a personal failure, but as a human experience that deserves care and compassion. Another positive development is the focus on prevention rather than reaction. Schools, college, workplace, and healthcare system are beginning to emphasize stress management, emotional reliance, and mental wellness before a breakdown occurs. Teaching coping skills, emotional awareness, and self-care can reduce a long-term impact of mental illness. We must also recognize the role each of us play. Supporting mental health does not always require professional training. Sometimes it means listening without judgment, checking in on someone, or simply being kind. Small action can create safe space where people feel seen and valued. Another overlooked issue is how often people are told to stay strong instead of being encouraged to speak honestly. Strength is not silence. True strength is asking for help, setting boundaries, and admitting when something is not okay. When we change how we define strength, we create space for recovery instead of shame. Society is quick to measure success by productivity, grades, or income, but rarely by emotional well-being. When people feel pressured to perform instead of well-being allowed to heal, mental health struggles deepen. We must redefine success to include balance, self-respect, and emotional safety. Mental illness reminds us that healing is not a straight path, but a journey that looks different for everyone. Progress may come slowly with setback along the way. Yet every step forward matters. When we allow people the time and patience to heal at their own pace, we honor their humanity, creating a world that values compassion over perfection ensures that no one feels rushed, judged, or left behind in their struggle. Mental illness is a concern not because it makes people weak, but because too often it is ignored, misunderstood, or minimized. When we fail to address mental health, we lose creativity, connection, and human potential. But when we choose awareness and compassion, we create environments where people can heal, grow, and contribute fully to society. Our mental health depends on everyday's choices. It depends on how we speak to one another, how we respond to vulnerability, and how willing we are to care even it feels uncomfortable. Change began in simple moment, a conversation, a pause, a willingness to listen. So we always have to remember mental health is not a side issue. It is a foundation of a healthy life. If we protect it, we protect each other. And when we do that, we don't just reduce suffering, we build a world where hope are valued. Another important aspect of mental illness is the language we use. Word shapes how people see themselves and how society responds to them. When mental illness is described with labels that sounds negative or permanent, people being to believe that recovery is impossible. Using respectful, person-first language remind us that individuals are not defined by their diagnosis, they are defined by their strength, experience, and potential. Mental illness is also a concern because recovery is often misunderstood. Many people believe healing means symptoms disappear completely. But for most individual, recovery means learning how to manage challenges while still living a meaningful life. This misunderstanding can often cause unrealistic expectation and disappointment. Supporting mental health means supporting long-term growth, not demanding perfection. Another issue is the fear of being a burden. Many people avoid seeking help because they worry they will inconvenience others or be judged. The fear leads to isolation, which can worsen symptoms. Creating supportive environment where people feel welcomed rather than tolerated can reduce this harmful cycle and encourage early intervention. Mental health also affects identity. When someone struggles for a long time, they may begin to see themselves only through their pain. Society often reinforces this by focusing on what people cannot do instead of what they can. True support helps individuals rediscover purpose, creativity,